So the purpose of the school budget is to make a plan. So for any organization or even a household, you need to make a plan on what your expenses are going to be for the next year. So this is the budget process is an opportunity to make a financial plan for the next year. The other thing the budget is a way for the internal organization to really look at itself. What are its goals? What is it trying to achieve? And make sure that those things are funded, and to ensure that the things that are really needed are funded as opposed to wanted. And then the other thing that the budget process does is it's a sense of accountability. We have to justify to our public, this is our plan, this is the money we're asking for, and this is why we're asking for. We go through the budget process. Budget process is defined by state law, the things that you have to do. And so we have the budget validation process with a public event, and then we have the referendum. If the referendum fails, then we start over again. And we have 30 days to go back to the school board. They redevelop a budget. The school board has a budget validation meeting, and then there is another referendum vote. Well, there's two entities really at the macro level, at the higher level. The legislature. So every year the legislature makes a biennial budget, and how they're going to fund and to what degree they're going to fund all the departments that they're responsible for. Maine Department of Education is one of their biggest clients or stakeholders, and so during that long budget process, during what they call the long session, the governor and the legislature pass a biennial budget, and within that biennial budget is a figure that says this is what we're going to be able to fund public schools for over the next 2 years. And so then at the local level, we begin our budget process in January. And that process begins with the cost center leaders, building principals, director of transportation, director of special education, all the 14 or 15 different cost centers present to the board. And they present what their goals were last year, how much they were accomplished, what they're going to need to do for the upcoming school year, why they need to do it. And so we do that over a 2-month process so that the board is informed of how much of what was funded last year was accomplished and where they think they need to go. And then after that, we have, I think we had about 8 budget workshops. We begin an enrollment assessment where we look at every single school. So that analysis of how many kids you have is really important as to how much funding you have and how you're going to staff your schools. So that's the first step. And then we look at what is it that we need. How many teachers do we need? How many technicians do we need? How many bus drivers? And what that determines is how much general purpose aid we will get from the Maine Department of Education. And so once we know that money, we know a little bit about our revenue, and we can start building our budget in earnest. So the first one, and probably the most important one, is there's a state law that says every school department in the state of Maine has to have an external audit by a certified auditing agency. And so for the last several years, we've been using RKO. It's kind of a long process. They look at every facet of every expenditure of the total budget. The business office spends a lot of time gathering all the data that they need. And there's 4 accountants who are auditor specialists that come, and they spend a week in the basement, and they look at every department. And some of the things that they do are run tests. They might go to the high school activities account, and there's a process of how you deal with money at the high school activity account. And they might just randomly pluck 8 transactions, and then they really scrutinize those 8 transactions. Was the process followed? Was a deposit slip made? Was the money collected properly? Did it get deposited in the bank? So if they look, if they pull 10 of those randomly and 9 of them followed the process 100%, then the auditors are going to say, hey, you guys are doing a good job with this. We're not worried about it. And then after they're finished working for a week, they go back to their offices and they spend quite a bit of time creating a report. I've worked in a number of school districts, and I worked in a school district that had a lot of money, and I didn't necessarily think they got their money's worth. And I've been in school districts where money's kind of tight, and because they're prudent and cautious and targeted, they got a lot of bang for their buck. So I think when I get back to the essential program and services model, that was developed in the late 90s and early 2000s by a man named Jim Ryer, who had been the head financial man at the Maine Department of Education for a good 15 years. And he worked with a researcher at the University of Maine at Orono called David Silvernail. And so they spent years working on Maine and Maine school funding formula. So they came up with what was called the Essential Program and Services Model. And what the EPS does is establishes a bare minimum in the state of Maine. Meaning if you're going to run a comprehensive school department in Maine, this is sort of the foundational amount that you need to spend on a school. That is a good baseline to have in terms of a conversation that, to even be serious about running a school district, this is what you need. Then you think about it, maybe I need to spend more than that. Maybe my reading scores in the elementary school are low, so I'm going to spend a little more than what EPS says in elementary reading. Maybe our high school kids aren't getting enough access to high quality, rigorous, challenging courses, so we might want to bring in a program for that, so we're going to spend a little more. And so that's kind of a way that can tell you that, from my perspective, there is a minimum amount, but to get to certain quality, you can, funding definitely has an impact. So more money is good if it's really targeted and spent wisely. That's what we try and do in this school district, is if we go to the school board, if we go to a committee, we like to think that what we're presenting is not half-baked, and that if we are asking to spend money on a textbook series or a new position or a new piece of equipment, that there's a good cost-benefit analysis and there's a really good reason for it.